good. So, all right, welcome everybody to Wapiti Wednesday for September 18th. This happens to be the weekly rut report. What are we? Week 4 now. So, okay. So, how did last weekend go? Last weekend was the first weekend in 30 years that I did not hunt during a weekend in September. So, we drove up to get to camp. We were going to pull the trailers, and they actually had a full-blown barricade across the road with a sign saying fire closure area. If you're caught within the fire closure area, it is a fine of up to $5,000 and or up to 6 months imprisonment. So we were standing there going, okay, we're 300 yards in there. Not a big deal. We can risk it. Just at that point, a Forest Service vehicle drives by. And then we're like, okay, they're making the loop. We have like 2 hours before they're back here. Then another Forest Service fire rig comes by the other direction. And it's like, all right, they're patrolling the shit out of this. I'm not interested in a $5,000 fine and up to 6 months imprisonment. So we opted to come home and not hunt last weekend. Nice thing is, storm rolled in and dumped anywhere from a half an inch to 2.25 inches of rain, and they are reevaluating the fire closure area. And there's a new closure area map coming out tomorrow or Friday. And don't know to what extent, but they are pulling it back. So we'll find out. At a minimum, we'll be able to go get our trailers and move it over to another spot. But what was the elk activity like? I did actually contact quite a few people that were out. Good bugling activity, and actually people are seeing some bulls starting to breed some cows. So cows are starting to come into estrus. So for all of you that predicted this week, I am sorry to say it is looking more like it is going to be next week for peak rut activity. So this is information that I have received from Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. So I haven't gotten any updates from Colorado, so don't know about that one. So also too, yesterday was the full moon, but here in Idaho we had a pretty substantial cloud cover which blocked it. So daytime activity with elk was pretty good. So now that Larry has just finally joined us, appreciate all of you tuning in. And remember, I'm out next week. Just kidding, Larry. We're not done yet. Um, so we were just talking about elk activity the last week. So bugling activity has been increasing. Bulls are starting to breed cows. And I had just said, for those of you that chose this week to be the peak, I'm sorry to inform you that it's actually going to be next week with peak rut. So from now until the end of September, rut activity, you're going to hear a lot of bugles. More and more cows are going to come into estrus, especially since we're getting closer to the autumn equinox on the 22nd. More cows are going to come into estrus. You're going to have more bugling activities. Now, as far as that part goes, remember what we've talked about, that if you get into a drainage and there is a bull or multiple bulls that are just screaming, there's a pretty good indication that there's a hot cow in there. Don't fall into the trap where you're going to slip on the edge and go, oh, I'm going to bugle to him, I'm going to pull him away from that cow. There's a very slim chance that you are going to pull that herd bull away from that hot cow. You may pull over one of the satellites. Better approach to do is one of two things. Either A, you can back out, come back in tomorrow when he doesn't have a hot cow, or you can set up close to him. If you're not interested in the herd bull, set up close to him, start doing the breeding sequence, and pull one of those satellites over into your setup. So, but at this point, playbook is completely open. Any calling scenarios you want to do, just remember, stay within your story, stay within what you're telling. So if you get a bull cranking 300, 400, 500 yards out, stay within your story until that bull breaks that 150-yard mark. Then you can really start engaging him. But don't abandon the story that you're telling with the calling sequence too soon to engage in him, which, remember, that's a mistake that a lot of people make. Also, to really pay attention to your surroundings. I had a phone call over the weekend with somebody because they were, okay, you guys know I get phone calls all the time of people going, "Hey, I'm 200 yards away from a bull. What should I do?" I answered the phone this weekend because I was at home. I wasn't hunting. So um, he's like, "Yeah," he goes, "we keep getting these bulls, but as soon as we cow call, man, they go the other way, bugling, 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 bugling." And I'm like, "Okay, what's your surrounding doing?" And he's like, "Well, we can hear other cows." And I'm like, "How is your volume level compared to the other cows?" "Well, we're quite a bit higher. We have a lot more volume." I'm like, "Okay. So all the other elk that you hear is down here, and you guys are up here with volume wise." So, and I just asked him, I said, "Are you calling like a human or are you calling like an elk?" And he all of a sudden was like, "Suck. I forgot about that one little question. Am I calling like a human or am I calling like an elk?" He says, "Okay." He goes, "We're going to reposition up 150 yards up the trail, reset up. I'll let you know how things go." I got a phone call 37 minutes later, 6x7, 6 yards, double lung, dropped in 40 yards because he lowered his cow sounds to match and be realistic with what he was hearing. So pay attention to your surroundings and pay attention to your levels. So, okay. So we have some people out in the field. We have representatives on the line with some questions. So, Sandy, Alex, who wants to go first?
Sandy can go, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Floor is yours. What are you running into? What questions you got, and what are you still doing wrong?
Oh, what am I not doing wrong might be the
The shorter,
yeah.
shorter, shorter list.
Yeah, so it's been really weird up here. The first couple days of season, so season opened on the 7th. The
Yeah.
elk were calling, they were everywhere. Um, I met a bunch of guys up here, joined their camp. One of them got a cow the opening morning. Thought it was going to be a great season. There's 15 guys in that camp. Only one of them filled the tag.
Okay.
Um, after about day 3, it just went quiet.
Right.
No calling. Couldn't find them unless you accidentally bumped them.
Okay.
About well, and the other thing is, only one person out of that entire crew has seen a bull with cows.
Okay.
Yesterday, I found 2 6 points by themselves, just wandering around. They're not herded up here yet.
Okay.
It's kind of odd.
Well,
Um,
we talked about this before, but continue.
yeah. So basically, my plan for tomorrow means my last day. I found a really hot wallow. There's sign all around it. They were in there today. I think I'm gonna go put a tree stand on it and sit there all day tomorrow and hope I get lucky. Maybe some minor calling uh, for the evening set.
Okay.
But I got to find a spike. I saw one spike in 2 weeks.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You're on that spike only unit. I agree with your plan of setting the trail or the tree stand over the wallow. Now, to kind of back up and talk about what the elk activity, have you been keeping an eye on your barometric pressure?
No, I've not been where I could see see anything on my phone.
Gotcha.
I drove almost an hour to get to Signal today.
Okay. Barometric pressure has been popping up, knocking on that 30 because of that system, that low front system that came through. So remember, when that barometric pressure gets, 29.7 and rising, they just really shut down. Kind of what I because we had. And that's what was a bummer last weekend. It was perfect weather. I mean, highs were 60, 61. It was 39 in the morning, partly cloudy. Barometric pressure was down in the 28 level. I mean, it just lined up for a perfect weekend. And a couple people that I talked to, they were like, "Man, the Bulls were absolutely ripping on Sunday, just all day till 2:30 in the afternoon." And I said, "Yeah, that's because that front was coming in, and that front was hitting Sunday evening, and so they kind of knew that, and so they were expelling some of that energy that they had because they knew they were going to be locked down." So that's kind of one of those things. If you have coverage, um, take a look, see if you can see what the barometric pressure is going to do. That storm just cleared, so it should be stabilizing a little bit. But yeah, as the last ditch effort, last day, tree stand over a wallow, good idea, especially if that's the only water source for a little ways. Um, More power to you. I don't have the patience to sit there all day because I know there's a bull bugling on the backside of that ridge that I'm looking at, and I just can't hear them. And I got to get out of the tree stand and go over there. But so if you do some calling, um, hit lost calf. Play
Okay.
on the maternal instincts, bring the cows in because there's a good indicator. There's a good chance that those spikes are hanging with the cows, especially where you said the 6 points weren't with them, and just those 6 points, their testosterone level hasn't raised yet. So
Yeah. The one was bugling yesterday morning. And I could tell there wasn't any cows with him, so I went on my way, went somewhere else, and just walked. About 15 minutes later, half hour after light, he just waltzed on down the draw, and nothing with him.
no, no.
But
So
I've been hearing quite a few bulls at night, the last 2 nights. But they're bugling between about 9 o'clock and at night to 2 a.m. and then nothing in the morning.
yeah, because remember too, you've got that brighter moon, and so they're going to bed early, and they're not coming out until really late. But your midday activity, that midday madness, is pretty hot right now. So with you sitting that tree stand, you might catch something right at first light, catching water off that wallow, and then you may not have anything until from noon to 2 o'clock, middle of the day coming in. So I know it's supposed to be a little bit warmer too tomorrow, so good indicator that those bulls could get hot and get in there and get on that mud to cool down and get the flies off of them.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Well, good luck to you. We expect a report with happy dance or happy one-legged dance since you probably shouldn't be dancing on that leg yet. So,
I'll send you a photo if I get one.
okay, perfect. So, all right, Mr. Alex, let's dive into your question for the boys in Colorado.
So a little bit different from what it seems like you guys have been experiencing in Idaho. In Colorado, they've had thunderstorms the last 3-4 days since they got there.
Yep.
They said it's been hard to move around. They don't hear anything. They haven't seen anything. This is a spot we've gone to this is our 3rd year now, and we've been within range every year multiple times, just haven't been able to close the deal. So the question that they have is like, how much does that thunderstorm activity affect what they're doing? And from what I read, it kind of slows it down a bit, and it'll at least make them shut up, right?
Yeah.
And then like with that, the barometric pressure has been dropping, but it's still like just above that 30 mark,
Yeah.
or where they're at. And like, does that? I know that affects how they are responding to calls or not calling at all, but did that change where they physically move?
No, it won't. What kind of changed? Well, what kind of changed a little bit was that storm that came through, because that storm that they're getting hit with. That's what's been rolling through on us the first part of the week. I mean, we had that Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday. So, elk can feel that change in barometric pressure. They know a storm's coming in. And I know there was some winds with that storm. And so a lot of times those elk will dive into sheltered pockets to get out of that wind and out of that storm. But as that storm clears, they're gonna come out of those sheltered pockets and be back in their more normal. Now, the other thing too is you said this is the third year you guys have been there.
Yep.
Okay. So this is a different year too, because the two previous years we were in a La Nina weather pattern, which is wetter, which means more food spread out all over. Now we're in an El Nino pattern, which is typically drier. And so the last couple of years, you've had food everywhere and elk spread out everywhere. Now, with it being drier, your food sources are going to be more concentrated and you're going to get larger numbers of elk in those areas. The nice thing about that is now all of a sudden what that means is you end up having a higher bull to cow ratio. And so your bugling activity and responsiveness to calls is higher because of that higher bull to cow ratio. So unfortunately, they just got back into this spot right when a storm was coming through that kind of shut them down a little bit. And it's going to be kind of, a little more limited on the food sources where they're kind of at. So some of these areas where you guys got into them in the last couple of years, that if they go into those areas and it's really dry and it's like, man, there's really not good food sources here. This creek that's been flowing the last couple of years is dry. Okay, they're not going to be in that area. Now it's like, okay, we need to go find an area where the creek is still flowing, where we still have, green grasses, green shrubs, elk candy, some of their favorite foods, and those are going to be the areas to hit. It's also bright moon too. This is a great time to just go out. Are they packed in or are they at a base camp?
They have a base camp. They have the ability to go pack in if they need to. We just haven't done that very often. Some of the spots that we found where we go here, it's oddly enough pretty close to roads. And
Yeah. So best thing to
a couple
do.
little pockets that people haven't found.
Okay, perfect. So best thing to do right now is take advantage of that bright night. Um, get up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Get in the truck, start driving the road, and start bugling. So,
Okay.
and I mean, I've done this before and driven 30 miles in a night bugling. Thing is as soon as you get a response, it's going to be bright enough with that moon because it's large enough. Park the truck, get the packs on, and start working towards that bugle. Get within 250, 300 yards of the bugle, making sure thermals are good. But then now nice thing is you're basically camped on that bull as he kind of moves, move with him. Really pay attention of what you're hearing around you. And nice thing is at nighttime, you can hear the smallest twig snap. It sounds really loud, in the middle of the night. But what this is going to do is then as soon as it starts cracking light enough, they're within striking distance that now they only have to cover 150, 200 yards to be within that good zone to, you know, get that bull into a calling distance. If they can get within 100 yards, it's like, man, we only have to call that bull 60, 65 yards over to get him 35 yards, from us. So, but take advantage of that bright night. I mean, a lot of times when we have full moons, bright nights like this, like I said, we'll get up 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning and we just go fishing. And as soon as we find one, man, we're after them.
Yeah, I just got a message from them actually from their inReach that they had a opportunity with a 6x6 today at 30 yards frontal,
Hmm.
and they just couldn't. He didn't want to pull the trigger on a frontal shot quite that far. But
Kudos to him. Yeah.
so they're working.
Yeah, they're going to find with that storm clearing and everything coming back out from those little hollers and deep pockets that they were in to get out of the wind that they're going to start seeing activity, and especially if they go out at night, they're going to hear a lot of activity on that bright moon night. So especially getting closer to the autumn equinox and the rut just really kind of picking up.
Is there?
Okay, was that it?
Well, you make it seem pretty basic, I guess, but
Oh, no, no, no. I thought they had more questions. So
well, it's hard getting like some of the stuff I research for myself, and then some of it's like that's already passed by the time I get back to be able to talk to you guys, or ask questions.
yeah, yeah.
I guess with the calling sequences that they've been using, with it being more silent during the day, like they get up pretty early and get out on the mountain. If it is silent, I try to tell them to keep using that breeding sequence and just keep working in towards them, and you're gonna pique the interest of something as you get moving.
So just remember right now, they're going to go quiet pretty early in the morning because they're going to go to bed within that first hour, hour and a half of light. And
Yep.
so and that's where it can be kind of disheartening because it's like, God, he was bugling great, and then about the hour and a half mark, he just shut up. Well, that's because he started heading to his bed early because he had that full moon, he had that bright night that he could start moving to their bed earlier. And elk will shut up when they get they don't bugle all the way to their bed. Once they get within a couple of 100 yards, they shut up because they don't want predators to pinpoint exactly where they're at. Um, but yeah, they'll shut up a little bit early, and that's where a lot of people just give up. Tell them if they have a bull that they're following in the morning and then he goes quiet, draw like a 300-yard radius around where that last bugle was. There's a good idea, and then look at the map. Look for heavy dark timber on northeastern facing slopes. There's a good chance that's where that bull bedded down. Then what they want to do is they want to make sure that they get on that same elevation or slightly a little higher, about 200 yards off to one side, and then just wait. In about 11:30, 11:45, start doing the breeding sequence. But they're going to go at a slower pace at it because there's a good chance that you're going to be doing this breeding sequence for an hour and a half. Because really what you're targeting is that noon to 2 window when those bulls get back up and go get water and feed a little bit because they went to bed so early. And the fact that they're that close, that's nothing for an elk to get up and come over, especially as they start doing that breeding sequence and start ramping up the excitement, ramping up the excitement. And a lot of times that bull will start bugling back out of his bed. And then all of a sudden, he's on his feet, and here just comes this bone rattling bugle, and it's like, he's coming. He's on his way. He's had enough. And then
Just ready to go all of a sudden.
well, he's been laying in this bed listening to this breeding sequence, and he'll kind of bugle a few times, and then he'll get up and he'll run around and scent check his cows real quick. None of his cows are in estrus, and he's like, screw it, they're still bedded down. I'm on my feet. And then that's when he just it's wah! It's just this scream, and he's basically saying, I'm coming. You small little punk bull better be out of there before I get there, or I'm going to kick your tail end, and then I'm going to breed the cow right in front of you. And there's a lot of times when we've done this in the past, in this scenario on full moon, this exact same thing. That man, he rips that scream bugle, and then he comes in like a freaking freight train. It sounds like somebody driving a VW bug down the hill and through the brush. It's just so freaking loud. And the hard part is he'll come through the lane on the shooter because he's locked in on where that bull is bugling from, and that's where he's going. And there's times out there as the shooter that had just been like, yeah, 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 just trying to get him to stop, and you almost have to bark at him to get him to stop in the shooting lane.
Yeah.
But it's fun and exciting.
Yeah. I think it's gonna start picking up for them. So I think it's looking good. They're just looking for a few tips here and there. So I'll make sure I relay that over to them. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, not a problem. And yeah, it's yeah, things really, picking up, and we're getting really excited about them. We're really excited to see how much they pull this fire closure back to see if they're going to open up, the area that we have been hunting and scouting with the trail cameras all summer. Because I mean, you guys that have been on some of these, you've seen some of the pictures on the bulls that we have on camera. And Liz is bummed because she has to stay in town and go to a wedding this weekend. So that 6 point that we had at her for at 9 yards, I told her, I said, don't worry, babe. there's other places we want to hunt, so we'll leave that bull alone when you come up for the last weekend. And Bryce goes, bull crap, I'm slipping in there Friday night and killing that little sucker right out from underneath her. And so and Liz like, Bryce, you're such an ass. We are going to go back up in that area, but we're going to get up on the saddle with the rubs and curl around to the north on the flat. So we're going to leave Herbal alone and stay out of his face. But yeah, so but yeah, activity should be really increasing. Weather. When I look at extended Doppler and extended forecasts, no rain, no weather for the next 10 to 12 days. Temps are temps are warming up a little bit into the lower 60s. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a great last 10, 12 days of the month and the season. So okay, anybody else got anything else?
Michael, I talked to my friends out in New Mexico, and I mentioned last week that when I was there, every time we'd call, regardless of how softly we would call, they would just shut up and leave.
Hmm.
And the experience of my friends out there now, they're doing exactly the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, they're not hot. They're solo. There are no cows around. One of them, he got a 5x5, 80 yards away, started barking at him, and he started barking back, and they just had a barking contest for 20 minutes, and then the bull got tired of it and left. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts about that?
It sounds like their testosterone levels, and we've talked about this before in the past too, that you're gonna have different rut activity in different areas. It's not a blanket over all entire areas. Really, excuse me, down there, really, New Mexico and those drier states, we all know that the water tanks and water sources are key. If you are going to do any calling, if you do any type of bugling or cow calling and they just shut down, that's saying the testosterone level in that area is just not risen enough quite yet. I would focus on lost calf.
Yeah, we did a lot of that too.
Yeah.
One day we did. That's all we did. Lost calf.
Yeah. Yeah, because remember too, and it's hard too because a lot of people are going to get in that scenario. And remember, a few episodes back, we talked about these bulls when those testosterone levels aren't there, where you can just see them feeding. So many people just want to sit there and call to that bull. And best thing is to just get off the side and tell a story, tell a scenario. But that's also too where being aware of your surroundings, paying attention to what you're hearing. So, for example, if you are telling the breeding sequence, you're not telling it at max volume. You're really turning the volume down and you're really slowing the pace of that down quite a bit. So, instead of doing five, six, seven cow calls, maybe you just do two calf, one cow, nice and soft. You shorten the number of calls that you're doing, and also lengthen the space in between each set of
Mhm.
sounds. So
Good advice. Good.
patience is the virtue. So I think that 1 6 point that I have downstairs. Now, mind you, this is a bull that called in 4 times that year before we got him. But that last time when finally got him, I want to say it was about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. I mean, I'm walking back there on the shrubs. I'm pulling leaves. I'm pulling, branches on the bushes to make it sound like I'm feeding them. And I'm doing a lot of this stuff to add realism. And man, after it was all done, Bryce walked up to me and he was like, "Dude, you had so much patience in that set." And I'm like, "What other option did we have?" I mean, it's just had to stay in it, and that's the hard part, especially if you're not getting a lot of bugles. A lot of people will give it 15, 20 minutes and they're like, "Yeah, this isn't working. Let's just move on." Whereas, man, if they had to stuck it out another 20 minutes, 25 minutes, that bull that was kind of curious just out on the outskirts, barely on earshot. Okay, now you've piqued my interest enough. I'm going to cover these 300 yards over to your direction and see what's going on. So patience is a virtue when they're not talking much. So one more ridge necessarily doesn't work very well when they're not talking much, especially if you know there's elk in the area. If you've got the sign that's telling you they're there.
Right.
So
That pretty much defines our last 2 years in Colorado that we had is we know they're there. We've heard them, couldn't quite get close enough to them. And then we do a 15-20 minute calling sequence and like, they must have trailed off and they were probably still right around in that area. We just didn't do it for quite long enough.
yeah, usually especially early in the season when I set up to work an area, I'm there in an hour minimum. So telling, and it's tough, especially day 3 of the hunt. You can't buy a bugle, you haven't heard anything, you haven't even seen an elk. You see the tracks, you see the poo, you see the they're there, and man, you've just gotten your teeth kicked in, and it's hard, man. I got to set up and do another hour long calling routine. But it's crazy because you can set up and do that. And man, 20 minutes into the routine, you can have a bull just come busting in. And then all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, this is the greatest day we've ever had in the elk woods. So, I mean, it definitely is high tides, low tides. So, but I think for a majority of the areas, we're coming into high tide that it's going to be a lot of fun these next few days.
Yeah, that goes with that bull I pulled in a few years ago. That lost cow call. 2-3 calls every 5 minutes, took 45 minutes.
I
He came in, didn't make a noise, he came in to 6 yards.
That was the one you called in for your wife that you
Yeah,
told
I
me
called
about.
it for my wife. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yep.
I remember you telling me about that.
Just,
So,
yeah, he didn't make a noise. It's 45 minutes.
yeah, and you were getting bored too at 45 minutes, weren't you?
I was going to give it an hour. I said, I'm going to do it. I mean, I have my watch. I'm talking every 5 minutes, like 2-3 calls. That was it.
That watch is the biggest key for timing because
Oh yeah, because you can't have no concept of time out there.
you'll sit there and you'll be like,
A minute feels like 20 minutes.
it does. I know. You're like, oh man, it's got to be time to go again. We're going every 3 to 4 minutes, and it's like, holy crap, it's been 45 seconds. What the heck? Yeah, definitely can relate. Been there. So absolutely. But all right, guys. So next week, no WAP or no rut report because I will be on the mountainside. I will be back in town on the 29th. I may be out of town that first week of October. We'll see if we can. I'm pulling up the calendar. So yeah, the second, I don't know if we'll be able to do one. So the next one may not be until the 9th, which is actually back to our regularly scheduled program. The 9th is actually the next Wapiti Live Q&A. So that will be a season recap, storytelling time. Sandy can tell us all about his record book, Monster Spike, and how happy his family is to have fresh red meat in the freezer. And Larry is going to tell us about his friends in New Mexico that just got into all kinds of screaming bulls. And Alex is going to tell us about three tags punched in 3 days.
Alex, good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good
Nice
luck,
Nice meeting you
I
tonight.
like this plan.
Hey, I'm just throwing out the good vibes to the universe. So, you what you project out is what you get back. So, positivity, good thoughts, good times. But remember, guys, to enjoy the journey. Pay attention to your surroundings. Pause for a moment, watch the sunset, hear the forest come alive. Just think of all the people that are stuck within the cities that never get to experience a lot of the things that we get to on the mountainside.
like me this year.
Yeah, I know you're homebody because
Yeah, no tag.
yeah, I know Jim can't
And-
even have
and
tag
take-
soup this year.
Yeah, no tag at all.
Take lots of good photos.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, do
those
that.
memories. So, all right, guys, as always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. Alex, thanks for tuning in, and again, thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
Best wishes, Michael and Alexander. You guys go get something.
Thank you, guys. So,
Sandy, good luck, man.
have
Michael.
a good night, guys.